Hello folks, Steve here. This was originally part of the previous episode, but we decided to break it out into two separate chunks because it would make it easier to edit, basically. So what follows is a spoiler-filled chat about the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition adventure, Storm King's Thunder. So if you're planning on playing in a Storm King's Thunder campaign anytime soon, as a player, we'd advise not listening because we're going to spoil some major plot points. You have been warned. Spoilers, what do you want to know? Right,
we're talking about Fell, weren't we? Sure.
Dirt. Yes. So wait, the way in which Storm King's Thunder is written is if, and it's only if, you go and retrieve the conch from the Cloud Giant Countess Senzori, you will find her torturing Felgalos. And a lot of the advice I'd seen about the campaign was they said introduce Felgalos earlier than that. Because then when you come across him being tortured, it's like, it's even more.
Yeah.
So what I did is, there's a point in the campaign where you're protecting Nightstone from an orc attack. And the way it's written is basically just a bunch of elves turn up, rescue you, and go, thank you. Right? Okay. And I decided I'd change that to Felgalos because it made perfect sense to me because the elves never get seen again. And I thought with Felgalos there, it gave you that introduction, and of course he turned into one of the best NPCs in the group.
Well, he saved Haval's life as well at that point, because I'd actually just been crushed. Haval had just been crushed by a tower collapsing on him because Benjamin hadn't.
The tower collapse was due to Felgalos.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He knocked the tower down, coming down to land.
In the one claw he giveth, and in the other claw he taketh away.
Well.
What's really cool is Felgalos and Ymrith are actually really old Forgotten Realms characters. So they were from like an old Dragon magazine article from like 20, 30 years ago, something stupid like that, which they've all brought back. And Clouth as well was also in these set of articles. So all the dragons you mentioned are all from these really old articles about these old powerful dragons. And it's supposed to be the whole thing about the giants and the dragons are going to go to war at some point. But yeah, I brought Felgalos early, and what was supposed to happen again, I said you weren't supposed to meet him at all. But what was interesting is when you tried to call on him for help, you found out he'd been captured, which means you went to Sansori's castle way before you were supposed to. And could have actually shortchanged it if you just stayed in the castle and searched it and cleared out the giants. You could have actually shortcut a massive section of the campaign. But you didn't because you were just there to rescue Felgalos.
Yeah.
And it was a really cool way because one of the things the book does as well, and I've noticed this in a lot of the more recent D&D campaigns, is they give you choices. So, for instance, in Storm King's Thunder, you had 5 different giants you could have attacked to go get a conch. That's 5 separate dungeons, which the interesting thing is that means, because we actually ended up doing 2 of them because of what happened, there's 3 whole dungeons in that book we didn't touch.
Wow. Nice.
And they're full, and they're adventures that take a full level each. They will take you from one level to another because they're that big, and you guys didn't touch them.
Of course, if we screwed up getting 5 of the conches rather than just screwing up one of them.
So that's one of the things that a lot of the D&D books do. Like Curse of Strahd does the whole thing about where certain items are is random. You meet a gypsy at the beginning, and it randomly spawns where things are based on the tarot readings at the beginning. If you play, what's it called? Waterdeep Dragon Heist. You've got, depends on which month you play it in, has a different villain and a different dungeon for one section of it.
Cool.
The idea is they're giving this details that every campaign is different, but it also means there's like 3 awesome dungeons that we didn't use, and they're really well written and well drawn out adventures. Didn't get a look in, basically.
That just means you've got more source for the future, Steve. When somebody goes, right, we're going to go to this random place. Shit, I need a dungeon. That will do.
Yeah, there we go.
Yoink.
So what is the chapter 3? So chapter 3 is the one with all the choices then. So in terms of kind of the Champion's Chance, what was that for us?
So chapter 3 is basically the bit where it says, like, chapter 2 is they encounter the first giant attack, and it gives you 3 places. Now, this is where I was actually hoping to draw you guys in for Master of Fate, because Master of Fate did the attack at in Icewind Dale, and you originally did the one at Golden Fields.
Yeah.
And then from there, you met 6 NPCs, and there's supposed to be 6 NPCs in every single town, and whichever one survive give you a quest. And the quests vary. Some of the quests are really fascinating. Some of them give you really cool rewards. Some of them have you traipsing all the way around the Heartsword Coast and give you a basket of fruit at the end. I'm not kidding. There is one of them where you actually travel like basically up to Icewind Dale, back down to bloody Baldur's Gate, and you get a basket of fruit for your troubles.
So I'm just trying to remember what we got from Golden Fields. I remember there was the girl, and she gave us a necklace as like and we went back to Waterdeep and we claimed her inheritance.
Yep, that was one of them. Yeah,
and
you didn't get the Trent one because the Trent died. So that was like one traipsing around forests, which was actually a really interesting kind of exploration one. I can't remember whichever ones you did now. The inheritance led to you knowing about the dragons. You were actually told a lot of information because of that one. But it didn't seem like important. It just seemed like just a splat of information. I can't remember whichever ones you had now. You see, the thing was as well, Masters of Fate, so Andy's group, also did one of these adventures, and we're also supposed to get 6 possible quest things.
But they killed all the NPCs.
No, they handed over. Basically, it's what happened is the Frost Giants attacked Icewind Dale. They're after one particular person because this person is a descendant of the person they're looking for. And the idea, of course, is you're heroes, you save this person. No, Masters of Fate went,
have him.
Have him. Bugger off. And the Giants went, all right then. And it's
so
like,
funny.
Problem solving, yes, did quite well. But it also meant they didn't get any of the quest trees. Actually, I did give them one because they're supposed to get one off the head of the town. Bryn Shander, that's it. Yeah. You get one off the head of Bryn Shander, and you almost followed it. And then changed your mind after you told me you were going to go to Waterdeep. So at the end of the session, you said, we'll go to Waterdeep next session. Beginning of the next session, I had all this stuff prepped for Waterdeep, and they go, No. Let's go into the mountains.
Son of a.
Yeah, we did that a lot to Steve.
Yeah, you did.
And we still continue to do it.
Yeah, you're still doing it now. You haven't finished yet.
So were there any parts of the story, Steve, that we didn't explore that you were kind of particularly hoping that we were going to do?
No, the thing is, I think you did a lot of the stuff which I found quite interesting. I mean, you went after the Giant Slayer sword, which I thought was actually really good. It involved you traipsing around a little bit, but I thought that was a good one because that one had a tangible reward at the end of it.
I have to ask on that front, we saved Zamorvan's, that it was his sword basically, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But we went to try and find what his son had got up to because he'd lost it in a game. We all went for baths when he was basically getting strung up. Was he actually... this has been bugging me for ages. Was he actually innocent and under mind control, and we should have been saving him rather than letting him die?
No, he was an arsehole. he gambled the sword away.
Oh, that's all right then. Because he got into a fight, and people said it sounded uncharacteristic, so it had been bugging Sandhorn at the back of his head. Like, we're supposed to be these good champions of chance, and yet... pretty sure that while we were having nice hot baths, we let an innocent man who was under some sort of mind control die, at the hands of the executioner.
No, it was right. He was an arsehole.
Yay!
That was an interestingly red herring, actually, that one. What I found what you missed out on, basically, some of the major kind of events because you weren't at the right place at the right time, if that makes sense. I mean, the big one, and this is the big spoiler, so we are in spoiler regions, that's fine. But the big one is that the main villain is a blue dragon disguised as a storm giant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the book assumes you'll work this out earlier than you guys did.
We didn't work it out.
Earlier.
It just had to happen.
No.
Is it Lennon?
So basically, no. It's Iamrith.
Or Mithri, if you prefer.
Now, this is the one thing I did change from the book because I thought it was a bit too on point. In the book, she doesn't disguise her name.
Right.
So she calls herself Iamrith as a giant, and I thought if I call her that, that's going to be far too obvious.
It wouldn't have been.
Worry too
Maybe
much.
I shouldn't have done that. So I made a Mithri, which was an anagram of Iamrith. Now, the book went... Basically, there's possibly 3 ways in which you could have found out who it was before time. So number 1, if you'd asked the right question... Now, this is the really weird thing as well. The way in which you get like the major plot point, which properly kicks it off, is you go to an oracle and you ask it questions, and you've got 5 questions, or is it 6 questions to ask? And the problem with that is you've got 6 questions. So if you ask the wrong question, you can miss that information. And basically, if you'd asked the right questions there, you would have been told there is a dragon.
Yeah.
But you didn't ask those questions. And that's not your fault, because
in the
it gives
story,
you...
we were still fixated on the Nightstone, if I recall.
Yeah. Yeah, which is the problem, because the book just ignores the bloody Nightstone, and it's nothing to do with the bloody story, which is really annoying, because I really wish I'd written that Nightstone into the main plot somehow. That it was, something to do with the main story, but unfortunately it wasn't. So you go to there, and also when you're at the Oracle, you encounter Imrith for the first time, because she comes to get information for the Oracle. And the book says if the party are able to hide themselves before she arrives, she will turn into giant form, grab the storm giant thing, and go into the Oracle. So you'll see a dragon turn into a giant. So you'll see her turn into that. And it's like, okay, the chances of that happening are really, really slim. Yeah. Well, the chances of that happening were extremely slim, and there was no way you could have known unless one of the characters were like standing out waiting to warn people or something like that.
Depends whether you'd listen to your bard or not. So chances are 0.
To be fair, the way that encounter ran was more or less as written in the book. There was just this other side thing that if they did this, they can find out this. However, what you were then supposed to do is once you got the conch, it basically says that Imrith ends up revealing herself because she says something stupid when you're in the audience chamber with everyone. But you snuck around and didn't go into the audience chamber.
No.
So there's especially this major plot point when you're like brought in front of the princess and she like interrogates you, and the Imrith is supposed to accidentally say something like, maybe they're the ones that captured Hecatomb, and everyone's supposed to go, no one told us he was captured. And Imrith goes, shit! and kicks off at that point. But you didn't do that because you used invisibility and Misty Step and all these spells to basically sneak round and get the information you needed a different way. And it was an interesting way in which your actions completely altered the direction of the campaign. We ended up diverging back to where we needed to be. But there was a point where it was like, well, you guys don't know what's going on now because of what you've done. You've got what you needed to out of it.
You hear that, John? Victims of our own success.
Yeah, I mean, this is the weird thing, and it's the weird way in which these books are written. I said it assumes that you're going to make certain options and steps, and you have to try and like bring it back. And what really annoyed me is at that point there was nothing else in the book that assumed that you didn't know who Imrith was.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, right, okay, how do I deal with, there's no no tips or hints. And it's like, so you're telling me that every person who playtested this game had found out the bloody blue dragon was the villain by this point, but my group doesn't.
Standard for us. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Really was. I was always a bit gutted. I think the one side quest that I'd like to do most would be the No One Has Hold, where we randomly got roped into delivering some harnesses to a bunch of
that's right,
leeches or necromancers or something, and we just delivered them and went, see ya.
Yeah, your character was not happy about us leaving them.
I really wasn't.
Do you know what was really annoying from my point of view? That was all prepped in Roll20. All the monsters were there, all their stats was there, the map was there. I'd even done dynamic lighting on the entire bloody hold. And you knocked on the door, and you basically do what delivery drivers are now doing. You knocked on the door, dropped on the doorstep, and ran.
I've been there, Steve. Dynamic light.
That's you, that is John.
Dynamic
convincing me away from another fight.
That's nice.
Well, yes, it was definitely Zandhorn's fault. But in my defense, this still goes back to a very early D&D experience that I had, where we spent way too long doing loads and loads of side quests when we were told that there was a time limit on things. And at the time, we were told that there was a time limit on things, so it made perfect sense not to go and do this thing, to put it on our list.
We learnt quite early on, was it the Goblin Cave in Nightstone? I don't know how true it is to kind of the book, but we took so long getting there because we were doing investigating, interrogating goblins, that people died, and I think that weighed on our conscience for quite a long time of, we can't dally. Actually, we're at no one's hold, but there's no one here. No one's being killed. And as much as Haval wanted to go in and wipe out the evil, Zanhorn's argument of, no, there's innocence at risk. If we waste time here, there's going to be more deaths on your shoulders. And it was like, I can't
with logical arguments.
That, can I? Gotta go up and do it.
It's quite persuasive, Zanhorn.
Irritatingly so, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Zanhorn has definitely been one of my most favourite characters I've ever played. Like, just for lots of reasons. He was irritating, but sort of still quite likeable.
Mostly irritating from Arrakis' point of view.
Maybe he was just irritable. In his eyes, he was irritating but likeable.
So I'm also a little bit gutted and think in some ways that Haval never got to meet up with his friend Arrakis.
Yeah.
And what's Sid's character called again? I forget him.
Cockwind.
Because I started my story with those guys, and we seemed to work quite well together, and we had a bit of banter and a bit of fun, as I recall.
Yeah.
It was weird because the intention was always that you guys could mix and swap as you wanted to, meet up if you wanted to. But you guys never wanted to meet up for the entire campaign. And I got to admit, to be fair, because of Andy's group, things didn't go according to plan, because what I was going to do is going to use that huge chapter 3 of Storm King's Thunder to seed things that were happening for the Masters of Fate. And then they could join in and do another one of these giant dungeons. You could go after a conch and they could do something else, for instance. It just so happened that they ended up doing something completely different, which is fine, because it's what, it's free will, isn't it? You choose what you guys want to do. Otherwise, it's just I don't want to pull you along on a choke chain and have a railroady adventure kind of thing. So,
for me as a player, after we swapped two players between the two groups, I think I personally felt like if we carried on swapping like that, you wouldn't gain the kind of group dynamics that makes a really good party. Like, you wouldn't feel like a cohesive party. You'd just be like, and here's another person that's introduced, so you don't get the same like interplay between the characters that way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, it felt like something broke slightly. Like, we'd started to bond a little bit with Derek's character Imrith, and then suddenly we had this Haval Roy guy, which is great. Like, it worked out really well in the end. But if we'd been changing regularly, I don't know whether that would have worked the same way. Who knows? It might have been even better. My instinct said no.
So I think from Steve, from your point of view, and spoiler, mode on, if you're going to offer advice to a GM who was going to pick up this and run Storm King's Thunder with their mates, what would you say is the biggest thing to do or not do or change?
You need to find a way, and I couldn't work out how to do this, admittedly. You need to find a way of introducing the Storm Giants a lot earlier, in one way or another. Because there's a whole thing in the beginning of the book about how, Storm Giant Queen was murdered, and then the Storm Giant King was captured.
Yeah, because that didn't come out until right at the end for us.
Yeah, and that's like the first like introduction to the book is all the things that have happened to do this. So there needs to be a way of somehow bringing that in. And the only way I can think of is Zephyros, which is the old crazy
cloud giant that we met at the beginning.
Yeah. I think he's the way of possibly tying things in, because again, he turns up and he just basically acts like an Uber driver if you use him exactly as written.
Yeah.
He turns up, he transports you from wherever you started to either Goldenfields, Tribor, or Bryn Shander, and that's it. He buggers off after that. And it feels like it was a bit of a, why is he there? And in fact, that's one of the little things that's a bit annoying. One of the things I did change wherever I could, although, I wish in hindsight I'd done it. The book likes to reference other books.
Okay.
And actually, Storm King Thunder makes a big point of referencing other campaigns. You meet elemental cultists. You meet dragon cultists. One of the quests, which you guys didn't actually do, the book even says, go run chapter 10 out of Horde of the Dragon Queen. And it's like, whoa, hang on. That's a different book.
That's Skyridge Castle.
Oh, and the very... Yeah, Skyridge Castle. It basically, at one point, because you meet the ghost of Blagothgus' son. Mm-hmm. So the book actually says, Blagothgus is in Skyridge Castle collecting treasure for the Dragon Queen. And then another part of the book says, oh, this makes a perfect sequel to Horde of the Dragon Queen. So, yeah, it's really bad how the book basically just gives you this quest. So you can have all this magic items as long as you go kill Blagothgus. And then that isn't a part of that book. It's something different. The other thing it does really at the end, and I did change the ending slightly, but it's only a minor point, is towards the end you meet a bunch of cultists worshipping like a statue in the desert.
Yeah, that was quite random.
That was weird.
It is random, and it doesn't add anything, and I tweaked it something so I could use that as a possible key in for one of the campaigns I'm thinking of running. But as it is, it's supposed to link to Tomb of Annihilation, but it's not a real link. It's just here's some serpent people.
See, I think... I get probably a little criticism I have of it is that our last two sessions, which kind of covers kind of the very end of the game, they all take place in that desert. It didn't actually feel like a climax to me.
Yeah, I felt that.
I actually felt the instance that we had on the boat with Bran, that felt more climactic.
Yes, and that's because now Bran was my invention completely.
Oh, really?
So Bran came from an adventure I'd found online to use at the beginning of the campaign when we didn't know what we were doing. And it was, I tied it into John's backstory because it kind of made a bit of sense.
Yeah.
So Bran became a bit of a recurring villain from that, and that was me tying that in. It's just supposed to be some random wizards on that boat.
All right.
But that was me kind of trying to tie that in, and I'm glad I did that. The end encounter has had a lot of problems.
Because I think you got the amphitheatre with those worms, then you got those serpents underneath. So then we've got the fight with the gargoyles, we've got the fight with Imrith, we've got the fight with these cultists, and we have no idea what these worms are. So I was like, at some point, there's going to be another monster. And then you've got a flipping mummy. You've just got a witch.
Yeah. I've got to admit, in hindsight, that final encounter is awful. Because I knew what you guys were going to do. So basically what it does, it splits over 2 levels. So there's a massive fight in an amphitheatre between an ancient blue dragon, which is one of the hardest creatures in the entire game, and a bunch of storm giants and yourselves. But you guys decided, which is perfectly fine, you were going to go underground and try and find the magic item which you needed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I had to work out, well, what's going to happen? Now, the book says that after Imrith goes to a certain amount of hit points, she goes back underground. So, like, fine. A certain amount of time, she'll go back underground, she'll find you, she'll start attacking you. But I couldn't work out how long that would take. So I've actually found a website where you can put in monsters, and it does a Monte Carlo simulation of a D&D fight.
Yeah.
So it does, I think it's like 4,000 to 5,000 iterations of the fight and works out the average amount of hit points each side loses each round.
Brilliant. That's quite cool.
If you just stayed and fought there with your potions of giant strength and the storm giants that are supposed to be there, Imrith would have gone down in 2 rounds.
Whoa!
And it was just like...
Yeah.
Because I kept, this isn't right, and it is, just the amount of damage you guys would have done. That's why I did the whole thing of you attacking her for a round and then the storm giants turned up. So I did the whole thing of like, there's a round of you getting terrified because you were outmatched. And then you had that moment when
the backup
storm giants came in and the backup arrives. And in hindsight, I wish I'd analysed that final encounter more and made it a bit more interesting. But you're right as well. There's random things in there. The mummy's in there. You actually had a bigger fight against air elementals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Than you did against the actual boss.
Yeah, and that was the weird thing.
for me, because of what had happened at the boat, where we had, I mean, the brilliant thing about that is that we were a man down, then we were, Havar was on almost like 1 or 2 hit points. We'd used up spell slot after spell slot after spell slot, so we were really on our last legs. So when we went into that amphitheatre, we knew we were going to face Imrith. We knew we had a certain amount of health potions. But then we had all these symbols, like the mummy, then these worms and these cultists. I was like, I need to keep something back because I don't know when the next monster's going to turn up. Of course, then we all just got obliterated. Like my health was on. I spent that last game, that 2.5 hours we played. I spent probably an hour and a half of that on 0 hit points. It felt like. Yeah,
because you got hit by a lightning bolt and you got hit by a claw attack, and that's it.
That's it. I was just down, and I felt that even Senza and Zanhorn, who were also spellcasters with healing abilities, I felt that we were all holding back on doing this because actually I don't know if I'm going to need to cast this level 5 attack spell on whatever's going to come out of that freaking hole.
In that last bit, when you guys were both down, Zanhorn basically spent the majority of the boss fight just healing you guys and getting you stood up again. That's all he did. He had this cunning plan where he was going to use that curse scroll that he's had for about half the campaign. And he's going to try that and then try and do a second wisdom-related thing to try and knock Imrith down. It would have felt a lot more satisfying if we'd done a bit more. But because we'd done such a good job of recruiting all these allies, we had all this help. And they're pretty serious help. Like King Hecatomb, Arshnag, we've got a dragon on our side. We were literally small parts of that battle in some aspects. But you could argue that that's because we've done a really good job earlier on in finding all these allies.
And the way you approached parts of that adventure, actually, you managed to get rid of the trebuchets that would have weakened the storm giants, giving Imrith more time. You did that really well. It was just, I've never run many boss battles in the game. And I think now I need to rethink it. And because we've just done the same as well. We've just done you guys fighting the Baylor, which, as we were discussing before we started recording, is 4 level 10 characters fighting a challenge rating 19 creature.
Dropped it in 3 rounds.
And
none of us went down either.
Not during the fight.
No. As a kind of final farewell, he kind of fucked us, 2 of us anyway. But the thing is, we went all out. We didn't hold back. Yeah. Basically, all my level 5 spells went out in about a round and a half.
Yeah, I think the problem we had is that we had the fight with the gargoyles, which weakened us.
Yes. Which is the way in which D&D is actually written. What it says is, it basically says you shouldn't be having one fight in a day. It says you should be having several fights. And then that means that you're not blasting all your spells in one go. You are conserving spells. Yeah. Like the fight which I thought was going to TPK you in the entire campaign was against 3 giant spiders in the tunnels in the Oracle.
Oh, so close.
That and the Remoras.
And that was the closest fight. No, but you'd already fought the Remoras at that point and taken it down. And you're in a tunnel. And if you look at just basic challenge ratings, you should have dropped those spiders in 2 rounds. And I'm there going, they're going to die to the bloody spiders. They've defeated the Remoras, who was outside, who can kill a character in one go. But you're going to get killed by 2 pesky giant spiders or something like that. So the idea is, the game is designed that you do several small encounters and deplete your resources each time. Yeah. And certain character classes, which you didn't have in your group actually, so wizards and warlocks, are set up that you do have short rests because they regain extra stuff during short rests rather than just hit points. But it's a difficult thing to balance. I mean, me and Andy have had loads of discussions kind of about this, of trying to balance encounters, and I don't know the right thing to do in D&D at this point.
I'm pretty sure that particularly as characters get higher level, it becomes really, really difficult to not make it swing massively in one direction or the other.
And it does seem to be that, yeah. And we got to level 10. I've got to admit, I'm finding the game as a DM less interesting at the higher levels. I don't know what your guys' views are.
The opposite, if anything.
Oh, okay. Because if you're like level 2 and I throw some goblins at you, I've got a good idea of what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You're level 10. I'm like thinking, well, I have to keep throwing more and more ridiculous stuff at you.
Mm.
And at the same time, it's like, I don't know how this is going to balance. Because as you said, it seems to be much swingier at the higher levels.
Mm. The swinginess isn't so good. But the other thing that you got to remember is that when we started building these characters, we didn't look at specifically what's it like to get from 1 to 10. And we're going to just look at all the stuff to get to level 10. We're looking at like all the stuff all the way up to 20. And you're looking at like, oh, and at level 12, I'm going to get all this cool stuff. And you get to level 11, and that's the end of the campaign. You're like, but the good stuff that I've been working towards.
Interestingly, I found that different. I went so many levels as a paladin. I was like, actually, everything that comes next in the paladin, the next, I think I got to level 6 as a paladin. 7, 8, 9, and 10. I was just like, they're a bit crap. I'm not interested. So I multi-classed, and I was like, I wish I'd been a fighter from the beginning.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that's where the game it started getting more interesting. But then I had to wait till the fighter got to level 3, where I became a battle master. I was like, now I can do some cool stuff. Now I really want combat and to not be on 0 hit points or bend to steal all my kills.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that as well. I mean, playing Arrakis, the high level sorcery stuff is really exciting and really powerful. And you can imagine in your mind you're doing all of these wonderful, sort of weird and wonderful magical storm tricks, but managing the high level enemies as a DM is really hard because there's so much they can do. I mean, a lot of them can cast magic inherently. They've got loads of hit points. They can move around. They've got all the legendary actions. They've lair actions if you catch them in the right place. They've got minions. And it just becomes an absolute cluster to try and manage all of this stuff. And if you get one thing wrong or slightly out of time, like if I do a legendary action when I shouldn't be able to, it can, as you say, John, it can really swing the balance of power across a fight.
You either find that it's, as a player, it's so daunting that you just think, like, this is hopeless. There's no way that we can win this legitimately. And it just feels like the dungeon master's being a dick on purpose. or you go the other way and, you just absolutely walk in, you think, ancient dragon.
Whatever, yeah. Goddess. Woos.
Yeah.
I think from our point of view, John, in terms of combat, when it comes to combat for us, we really only had one means of approaching any combat. We didn't have much range at all. It was just Benjen charged in with Haval behind him, and then Senza and Zanhorn tucked behind them, offering spell support. I think that was that's essentially how we ended up doing every combat was
hypnotize half the things.
Yeah.
Smash the ones that get close enough, and hope that they haven't got lots of long range stuff while we run up at them and die in the process.
There was some fights where we were against ranged attacks and we just got filled with arrows. I forget, we were approaching a castle or a wall, and there was balusters.
Yeah,
no, we were defending it with a horde.
You're defending,
and their range, we were just sitting ducks for so long.
Zanhorn got crushed by a boulder.
Yeah,
he was hiding in a tree basically, and from my perspective, it's like perfectly safe here. I can carry on casting out of here. No one's going to get me, and from nowhere, just a boulder, just unconscious in one hit. That's it. Okay, well that's me for now.
Those encounters always were, I think, the most exciting. Like when you neutralize one player, whichever player it was, everybody has to react to that. And I think, Steve, I don't know whether we had a chat about this kind of in our group messenger, but as soon as you give the players something else to do other than just beat the bad guys, those fights were the most exciting. So when on the ship, when Bran banished Benjen to another dimension, we had, we've got to get Benjen back.
Yeah, you got to break you got to break the Bran's concentration so that Benjen comes back.
And that was bloody hard.
That was bloody hard, yeah.
That was such an exciting session, that was.
Thing is, there were a lot of big sticks on the ship, and they're all pointed at us. And Haval had already plummeted whatever it was, 100 feet to the sea.
Yeah, I'd gone from max hit points to 2 in one turn.
Right there, Icarus.
Yeah. Falling damage is an excellent player killer.
Ouch.
I need to remember that for future things, and I think that is sometimes that happened organically, like as you said, like Benjen getting banished. But I do think a lot of that needs to be keyed into these adventures more. It can't. D&D does seem to rely on their written adventures on straight up fights all the time, and I'm starting to realize it's not just a case of a straight up fight. It needs something else to kind of do it. Now, I tried to do that a little bit on the session you guys had last week in Masters of Fate, because the Baylor's there and you can fight him, but something else is going on and he's stalling, and you can tell he's stalling. Why is he stalling? He's trying to keep you here and keep you talking, kind of thing. And you guys got into that. The fight itself ended up just being a straight up fight, but the build up to the fight was a bit more dynamic. But yeah,
we were definitely a lot more cagey. I mean, not just because it was a bloody level 19 Baylor, but and it was like the culmination of a lot of build up. But it was that there was something else going on, which, as you say, we did tap into. A quarter of the party decided to sneak round and find out what that was. But we were a little hesitant to even enter the room, because as soon as we arrived in that structure, there was just nothing there apart from the thing we were looking for. And we were all sat there thinking, that can't be this easy. And that put us on edge. So I think that worked really well.
Yeah.
Now, it's definitely something, as I DM more, and I'd really like to do more of it, that's something I'm going to be really conscious of in the kind of the big fights, is have the heroes, have the players, have them fighting for something other than just to kill stuff.
It's like I keep meaning to go back and look at it proper. If you ever look at the adventure design for the Descent board games or Descent styled board games, the Descent and Imperial Assault, they always have the two different sides have got different objectives. So, it may be, very rarely is the objective achieved by killing everything. So it might be a case of, you have to get to a certain point and activate something, and another one has, well, you have to, this character has to go over here, and you've got two things happening, and basically whoever does their objective first wins. But you can have a straight up fight if you want, but if someone has a thief which dodges a way out of the way of everyone, that's all of a sudden the other team have to run after that person to try and stop them, kind of thing. And I think I need to get a bit of influence from that into some of these boss fights. And I think some of the Wizard of the Coast writers need to do the same as well, actually.
Good idea.
No, but I absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed that game.
We did some of those sorts of things, like when we were fighting. I mean, we're relatively low-level characters when we were at Golden Fields, but we were fighting like full-on hill giants and things. And one of the things we did was we stealthed through the woods and tied their feet together.
Yeah.
See, now that was a really interesting encounter, that was. I thought that was a fascinating way of doing things. However, and it's another criticism a little bit of Stone King's Thunder, is a lot of that encounter you played didn't come direct from Stone King's Thunder. That came from an expansion module I bought on DM's Guild that someone else had written.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There were a lot of the ideas about how to break up that fight into chunks and these events happening wasn't in the book. That was from something else I bought that someone else had written of their own accord, kind of thing.
Is it worth putting a link to that thing in the show?
Yeah, there was a couple actually. We did I can't remember what it was called now. I think it was just called Golden Fields. It's just called Golden Fields on DM's Guild. And I also played the Creature in the Sewers in Tribor.
Yeah, that was a fantastic session. That was.
Yeah,
that was really
and that
good.
Again was an extra adventure. That wasn't part of the book.
Yeah, that did confuse me slightly, because we defeated that thing and it disappeared, and it felt like we'd stumbled upon something big there, and then nothing happened about it for absolutely ages.
And that was one of the ones where it's like, it's one of those ones where the book says, "Oh, this will help introduce the Kraken Society," and you go, "Okay, right, we'll run this adventure."
But they drink
then
a lot
they run
of rum.
the adventure.
Yeah, we made that joke as well, I think.
So the book, that adventure advertises itself as introducing the Kraken Society. The Kraken Society doesn't get introduced in the book proper either. And at the end of it, we played it, and I went, "I didn't mention the Kraken Society." Played through the adventure. Where were they supposed to have found that out from them? Oh, it's not actually in here.
So just thinking, interestingly then, so Steve, as we've been talking about this, so the Golden Fields encounter, the Kraken encounter, and Bran on the...
No, the Kraken encounter was part of the book.
Oh, I mean, yeah, the Tribor monster.
So the monster that was in the sewers, that was from that wasn't part of the book.
Okay, and neither was Golden Fields.
The Golden Fields is in the book, but Golden Fields in the book is like a paragraph.
Right.
Whereas I found this thing on DM's Guild which broke it down and turned it into like little sub-encounters. And that made a lot more sense because the way it's written in the book is basically just, hey, some guys come in and start stealing supplies, and then a whole army rocks up outside the gates. Whereas what this book does is this like DM's Guild supplement just kind of went, right, let's break it down a little bit more. They can go here and do this. They can go here and do this. And basically just added a bit more flesh to it. So it didn't really change it. It just added more detail that you could use and bounce off a bit more.
I just find it interesting that those are kind of two big fights that I remember, plus the Bran on the boat, which aren't in the book.
Yeah.
So some of my favourite bits aren't in the book.
Yeah. And Bran... There is a wizard on the boat, and I just swapped him out for someone you've met before.
Was the wizard someone that we could have met before, or is he just a random wizard?
No. Nope, random wizard. Never seen him before.
There'd be no reason for us to attack that and go down and have a look.
No, there is.
Because you could see King Hecatomb chained to the top.
Of course, yeah. Well, we had extra images, didn't we?
That was the most frustrating part of that, right? There was two things you guys did which really bloody frustrated me in this campaign. The first one, when you're at the Oracle and the Oracle says, right, what you need to do is you need to go get some giant artifacts and then we'll show you the path. The more artifacts you get, the more paths we'll give you. And you all guys went, well, we only need one. Let's go get one. 2 weeks later, when we actually played the session, you all went, no, we need to get all of them.
I'm sure you'd said the more artifacts you get, the clearer the path will be.
It was it wasn't. Yeah.
So we thought we need more then.
But what was really annoying is Ben had even sent me a message going, my character will be really upset if we go after more than one, so we're going to go after one, and we've agreed that with the rest of the party. Fine, fair enough then. That's what you're going to do.
That's where you made your mistake, Steve. You listened to Ben.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you'd even told me you were running after one.
Sure.
Halfway
I don't remember agreeing to go to one.
You did. You said you were only going to go to one, and then halfway through the session, I had to prep the second one because you went, well, we're already on the way. Let's go. And it's like, because I even said to you, look, these monuments take time to set up because of the maps and the monsters that are there. And you went, fine, yeah, we'll let you know a week ahead. And you changed your bloody mind. The other one was how to find Hecatomb. What you were supposed to, again, the book assumes you're going to do one thing and one thing only. So the book assumes that you're going to storm the Grand Dame, which is the boat with the casino on.
Yeah.
Find the guy with the pet squid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lord Dryland.
And interrogate him.
That Wonko.
And interrogate him. No, not that squid. Different squid.
Just a vicious octopus.
So it's the book assumes you're going to go into his office, storm into his office, kick the door down, and interrogate him. It gives you no other information about how the players can find out where Hecatomb is.
Right.
And you guys went, no, we'll ask him a couple of questions, then we'll spy on him. Oh, shit.
We did a lot of spying on people.
That is the one session I wish I hadn't missed. I forget what was going on in my life at that point.
Yeah, because you couldn't make it. And because I tied that back into your backstory as well.
No, I remember I was watching that. I was trying to get the kids to sleep because Kieran was ill.
You were coming along late.
And I was going to come in late, and I was in the Tesco's car park, so I'd just been driving around for like an hour, and the kids had finally gone to sleep, and I was watching it on my phone. It was 8:30, and I was like, I'm half an hour away from home. By the time I get home and get the kids into bed, I'm only going to be there for the last 45 minutes. It's just,
So that one really screwed up because you guys didn't do what the book said. I couldn't work out how to give you the information. So I let this breadcrumb trail, and I basically told you Hecatomb's on this ship called the Morkoth. It's heading to Purple Rocks. And you didn't believe me. And you will find it. Should we go after this boat that's got King Hecatomb, the one thing we've been told to look for? No, let's find out some more clues to find out if he's actually on there. And I was like,
can't remember how it came about now.
Well, and in the end, because Rory hadn't been there, I basically said to Rory, right, you're told this information, start the session with this information.
There would have been a reason why we distrusted it. I can't remember what it was now.
Yeah, but you distrust it because I was trying to find a way of giving you the information because you didn't do what the book said you were going to do.
Yeah.
Which means I couldn't then work out how... basically, I was left completely floundering at that point because I did not know how to give you that information and what to do with it. And no matter what I did, you didn't believe the information. So the idea was you were supposed to get that and just get straight in the airship and go straight to, find the ship. And even when you found the ship, you go, oh, there's a storm giant tied to the deck. It might not be Hecatomb. What?
How many storm giants have you heard of around here?
Well, the reason that came about is because we looked down at it and I said, oh, look, that looks like Hecatomb. You said, could be Hecatomb, might not be. Like, well, okay. So it might not be then. If you put doubt in our mind, you can't then blame us for having doubt in our minds.
No, you said, is it Hecatomb? And I said, we've not seen him, so you don't know.
Well, there you go then.
No, brilliant.
Yeah, that was good fun. Despite all the confusion and the oddities along the way, it was a fantastic campaign. It was a lot of fun.
But by the way, Andy, you mentioned the squid.
Yes.
That adventure is actually... So what happened? What Adventures League do? The Adventures League is a set of adventures that are designed to be run in stores.
Ah, okay.
So they're supposed to be for... So basically, they're very bare-bones adventures, and they basically are broken down into chunks. So this session will take an hour. This session will take an hour. This session will take an hour. And it's very bare-bones. I didn't like them at first because I thought they were too thin. But actually, having played a bit more, I actually really like them because they're really easy to flesh out and use as jumping-off points. The Morkoth one you did with Wonko's Island was based on one of them for Storm King's Thunder.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So you're supposed to be going, the whole Wonko's Island thing, you were supposed to be getting to the treasure before a giant and his ship got there, which you kind of did. The way the adventure's written is actually a bit weird, and I tweaked a couple of things. But you guys latched on. The bit with the illusion of the ticket collector in the tuxedo is in the adventure, and you hooked onto it so much that it was like, I can't not let this go now.
Yeah. Well, that's when we played. That's when we played the gay couple with Cockwind as our adopted son, didn't we?
Oh my God.
I take it back. I'm taking it back. I'm glad Haval never met up with you guys again.
To be fair, it was one session where we decided we wouldn't stream it because John was busy for some reason. John couldn't do it, but we could have remote desktoped in, and we said, "Oh no, let's not bother," because it can be a faff doing it. And as soon as the session finished, we all went, "God damn, we wish we recorded that session."
It was brilliant.
I think that was about the point where I gave up because it's like if you've already missed one crucial point now. There was something else like another week or two later. I just said to you, "Is it worth me streaming this anymore?" And you're like, "Nah, don't bother."
Yeah, it wouldn't have made sense. Right then, we have been talking for a hell of a long time, so how I'm going to edit this down to something sensible, I do not know. But if you're stuck this way, thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back soon.
Take it easy. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Catch you later.